Good afternoon. It's Sunday, January 13th, 2019. This is the Central Florida Computer Society, the Windows Special Interest Group. I call it the WinSIG. I'm Huey Poplock. I'm sitting in Bradenton, Florida. The meeting is being held in Castleberry, Florida, outside of Orlando, about 120 miles from me. We do this every month. And for those of you who are online or who are watching the recording, we welcome you. We're glad you're here. And let me get started by, let's see, I'll minimize this. You should see my screen. And I'm going to bring up this and go to my page. I'm showing you how I get to the notes for the meeting. They're online, so you can get to them. These are all of the items and topics for today. And after today, there'll be a recording, and that will go in the area right below this, the listing of the items. So let's get started. Let's see, let me make this bigger one more time. I have to be careful because I've got some things over the side of my screen and I don't want to block so I can read what's going on. So Microsoft's latest security patches, Stan sent me this just a day or so ago, and I did want to share it with you. Actually, the heading is wrong because it says the latest security patches now have broken parts of Windows 10, but as we read here, and let me make this larger, and it's full screen here, and whoops, do this. Okay, what it's saying is not only has it given grief, but not just for Windows 7 users who were hit by network issues, as I saw yesterday, but those running Windows 10, the April 2018 update. So if you've already done the October update, the 1809, which is September, October update, you were not affected by this. But the majority of the Windows users still are on the April 2018, or let's see, it's the 1803 version. You may have had some issues. There were a number of reports of online of some Windows 10 users running that version that suffered at the hands of a particular update. And this is a security patch which addresses a number of flaws, including a hole in the PowerShell, which wouldn't bother you, but it broke some other things. So after installing the patch, some folks have hit network issues or problems with applications working, including Windows Hello failing. Probably most of you don't use that, along with the dreaded blue screen of death issue reported by one Dedison of Twitter. They're working on fixes, and so it's very important that you do the updates. But you might want to start thinking in terms of getting and doing the update to the Windows 1809 version, and you'll see another reason why you want to do that here shortly as well. So if you're having a problem, you're not sure, or if you're not sure which version you have, you can go to Settings, then go to System and About. And if you move down, you'll see I'm running the 1809 version, so I wasn't affected by that update. If you're running the 1803, or if you're not running Windows 10, and you're running Windows 8.1 or 7, you may have those issues. So we want to make sure that, whoops. All right. Let's see what we got next here. Beginners or so I was going to start with this until Stan had sent me that. So here are some tips for all of you. Beginners or intermediate, let's go ahead and make this bigger. And then I thought what I would do. Some of these may have received, you may have received a new PC, and these might be some things that you might want to add, or you weren't aware that they are part of Windows 10. If you have a laptop, let's take this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a Control-C, copy that. Then I'm going to bring up my notepad. And I've got that with a large font, and I'll paste it. So much more than a touchpad, did you know that assuming you have a touchpad, you can use it far more than basic clicking and mouse control? 2 finger swipes will allow you to scroll through a document. 3 finger swipes will switch between apps and launch the multitasking view, while 4 finger swipes will move between virtual desktops if you use that. So to enable these features, you'll need to go to Settings, Device, and Touchpad, and then make sure you do that. So you go to Settings, Devices, and I don't have a touchpad on here, so you won't see it, but it would be probably a mouse, or there's probably one that says touchpad, and you'll be able to go to it. Let's see if I hit mouse, whether I get that. No, because I don't have a mouse. I don't have a touchpad on this computer. This is a desktop, but you would see it and go into touchpad, and you'll have settings for that. On my laptop, I have a problem when I move my finger along the touchpad that I put too much pressure, and it thinks I'm clicking it. So I always touch the, or I turn off, I go into the settings of my touchpad, and I turn off the tap to click, and that solves that problem for me. So there are settings for your touchpad. Go in and take care of them if you are having issues or you want to change them, but you at least go in and take a look at them. Let's see, where's that article? Okay, Smart Storage Sense. This feature is great for keeping your device free of junk. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it. This feature is great for keeping your device free of junk and avoiding unnecessary storage problems, but you do need to be careful with this. The Smart Storage feature, once enabled, will automatically delete temporary and junk files to allow for additional storage on your device. To enable this feature, you'll need to go to Settings, System, and Storage. So let's do that. Settings. System and Storage. And you turn it on here. I'm not going to do that. We'll talk about it. But when you click that, it turns it on. But what you want to be careful of is that one of the things, well, let's see. Let's try that. I think if I do this, see how we free up space automatically. Okay, one of the things you want to be careful of is delete temporary files that are my apps. Our apps aren't using, and it'll delete those. But also delete files in my downloads folder. So a lot of you store everything in that downloads folder. So what you need to be very careful of is if you're going to do this, that you make sure that your download folder is backed up, number one, and so you can see what you're doing, and then look for the settings to shut that feature off to delete anything in the downloads folder. And there's a way of doing that. I don't have it immediately at hand. But be careful when you're doing this sort of thing, because if it's automatically deleting something, you may automatically delete something you don't want to delete. So let's go back to here. Oops. Enable the Nightlight. I don't know, some of you, if you use it, use your computer in the bedroom or you use it in the living room, but there are other people at night, you can tone down the lighting so it's not as bright as you need during the day. And you can do that by going to Settings, System, and Display, and then tap on Nightlight. So Settings, System, display, and then go to Nightlight settings and just turn it on, turn it off. And when you hit the settings, you can set at what time is it going to change so it's not quite as bright. If I change it, you won't see it through this system, so there's no sense in me even trying to do it, because it only affects my monitor. It doesn't affect what goes out through the internet. Using virtual desktops, I don't think any of you are doing that, but if you are, there's some things you can do. You might think about doing it. Accessing the emojis, yes, it's become a big part of how we communicate. To access them, you need to right-click on the taskbar and show touch keyboard button. Once the touch keyboard is present, you'll need to click on the smiley face to access the available emojis. And I have it here, touch keyboard. I click on it. You'll see this. If it's activated, you'll be able to do this. And then you'll have a lot of emojis that you can put on the screen. So we'll close out my keyboard, my screen keyboard. Auto locking feature. It's convenient as long as you have Bluetooth capabilities and your phone and PC. And your print screen key. Now I use a program called Snagit, but if you're not using that, if you use the print screen key, it will do a screenshot of your entire screen, and then you can paste it into something. It copies it, and then you paste it into one of the ones that I like to use is Notepad, WordPad, not Notepad, because Notepad is a text editor, but you can do it with WordPad, and it will take the picture, so it'll take your screenshot. And let's see what happens if I try that. And then just do a paste, and there it is. There's a screenshot that I have. So it's very easy to do a complete screenshot just by clicking on the print screen button. I don't want to do that. I just, yeah, I closed it. That's good. Disable privacy sharing. If you're doing any of that, you might want to take a look if you're concerned about it. Boosting battery power. And then, of course, the Windows 10 shortcuts. You might want to take a look at all of these. Let me make it larger so you can at least see them. Whoops. And you can see, let's make the view and do the, format font. Make it just a little bit smaller. Got it at 48. Let's do it at 28. Say OK. And so there's the various keystrokes. You're using the Windows key, and tab opens the task view, and so on. So you might want to get this list and learn these if you don't learn anything else. Okay, so that's the part of that. Hang on one second. Okay, so let's go to the next item. I'm going to go ahead and close that. How to personalize your PC. There's a lot of ways you can get to this. To personalize your PC, you can do it through your settings. But the way I like to show people is I'm just going to minimize this, and I'll minimize this. You see my screen. If I right mouse click on this and click on personalize right here, it automatically opens up the personalization screen. Now I use a solid color only because I do a lot of presentations, and having a picture in the background confuses people. But if I want, all I have to do is change that. You can have a slideshow or just a picture, and you can click from one of the pictures that they present, or you can go to browse and find any picture on your computer and post that in the background. I'm not going to do that, but I'll take one of their pictures. Let's take this one. And bingo, when I do that, I have a picture in the background. But if I'm showing you something on the screen, that gets confusing. So we're going to go back to personalize. We're going to go back and change that to a solid color. I can change it to any color I want. I like this color because it's very neutral. And we'll go ahead and there are some other things that you can change. There's themes, background colors. You can change. You can have a whole theme. And there's all kinds of, there's some that are available immediately. There's some that you can go out and get more themes from the Microsoft Store. Most of them are free, and you can just go out and get them and make your screen a little bit more interesting than I do. I just make it very utilitarian, and I don't need it fancy. So let's go back here. And come back here. Okay, the next item on here is update now. There are issues with things, security issues with programs and with the operating system and with everything that you use on your computer. And how they fix those is with updates. If you don't do the updates, you may be vulnerable to getting a malware or a virus. So this article is telling you that Adobe has some serious issues with their Acrobat Reader and the Acrobat program. And what they're saying is that you need to be sure that you're updated with the Acrobat Reader to the latest version. And let me see if I can find where that is. And what you want to do, affecting all versions of Windows and Mac, anything that's 2019.010.2064 and earlier, the fix is to update to the same thing but 20069. How do you check what you've got? Number one, go and find your Acrobat Reader. Go up to Help. One of the first things you can do is just say check for updates. You can also do About to find out what version you have, but I always click the check for updates, and it checks, and there's no update available because you'll notice here, now you probably can't read it, it's very small, but it says that I'm running 19.010.20069, which is the latest version. So somewhere along the way, it either automatically updated or I updated it. But going back to Help, about Adobe, oh, go away. About Update Reader, again, you can just see that that's the latest version there. I know it's difficult to read. I can't make it bigger, but it is telling me which version that I have. I guess I have to click that to go away. Then I'll move this out of the way and close it. Okay, so that's so update that. If you are running Adobe Flash Player, you might want to. There is an emergency Flash patch, but it's usually recommended that if you have Flash on your computer, that you delete it. But some of us use programs or go to websites that you need to have Flash. You want to make sure, number one, that you're not that you're using something that's been checked and is not vulnerable, that you're not going to get something. In other words, if you're not sure of the website or you're not sure of the file that you downloaded that's Adobe Flash, don't play it. But if you are and you need to have it, you can run the program, but make sure that you do the most recent updates of Flash. There is a November Flash that was a separate patch. So just be careful. Make sure you're doing all kinds of updates, including your operating system. I'm getting a phone call. Hopefully that's not from CFCS. So I am going to continue. Okay, how to make Gmail your default Windows 10 client. Let's see. Dick, can you or Stan, will you, if there's somebody from there calling me, let me know. If not, I'm just going to continue.
It's not from here.
Okay, good. Okay. It's on the other side of the room and I'd have to get up and I'm not going to do that. Okay, how to make Gmail your default Windows 10 email client. I'm not sure how many of you use Gmail. This is suggesting that set Gmail as a default email client on Windows 10, but what they're talking about here and going to the settings, I went to every kind of settings I could find, and then I finally realized that they're saying to go to the settings in your Chrome browser. Now, if you're not using Chrome, I need to move something down here. If you're not using Chrome, you're not going to know where to go with this, and it may not be the same. So I'm going to go to the browser settings, and I want to go to advanced content settings and then handlers. So I'm going to go to settings. This is in Chrome. I tried the Windows settings and that didn't work, and I tried the Gmail settings and that wasn't working, so I finally figured out it was the Chrome settings. And what you have to do is go all the way to the bottom, go to advanced, and then you have to come down here to content settings, and then you have to come down to handlers here and turn it on. Now mine is on. If it is off and you turn it on, it will give you an icon up in the top. And when you do that, whoops, then you follow the rest of the directions in this document, and it will tell you how to set your default email. So what happens is when there's a link to an email address, when you click it on a website, it may or may not go to your Google Mail or your Gmail account. It may open up your Windows Mail, it may open up your Outlook, it may open up something that you don't normally use. In this case, you're going to tell it to Google Chrome. You've got Google Chrome set with a handler, and it will then take care of it. Now, what happens if you want Outlook to be your default or something else? Well, that's Windows handles that, and you want to go with this article is how to change the default email app on Windows 10 for the link. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to settings, apps, and default apps. So this one, you're actually going into the Windows and go to settings, and you're going to apps, and then you're going to go to the default apps. This is where all the default apps are. So when you want a music player, mine goes to VLC Media Player. I click on that. It will give me others that I can choose. Okay, something's going on here, so it's not doing it. And then, of course, we're stuck. So I'm going to close that and go back and try again. Go to settings, apps, default apps. Okay, so we have the various let's see, default apps, what we want. So under email, I've got Outlook. But if I didn't want Outlook, if I click here, I click the Outlook, I can change it to the mail client that's part of Windows. I can change it to Google Chrome. I have it at Outlook, or I can look for an app in the Windows Microsoft Store and put something else in there. So if you're using something like Thunderbird, you may have Thunderbird as your default email program. So this is where you change your default if you want your default web browser to be other than Chrome, if you click there, you can also change those. So that's where you change the default apps. But at this point, what we're doing is we're talking about changing the email app. And so I have it set for Outlook. You may want to change it to something else. And that's how you do it. And this article goes into a little bit more detail on how to manage that, but pretty much what I showed you. Okay, now let's move into the fact that some of you still haven't updated to the October 1809 version of Windows. Remember that Microsoft does 2 releases a year. The next one will be called, we're not sure what it's going to be called, but it'll happen around March or April. And it will probably be the 1903 or 1904 release. And you know, that's only a couple of months away. So we're getting close to already having yet another upgrade or update to Windows. And so they're starting to see some of the things that are going to be in that new version that are going to be coming in just a couple of months, providing they don't have a lot of problems with the update like they just had. So some of these are starting to go public. So and those who are doing the beta testing, they give it release numbers, and then 19H1 is, I guess, the last release as the finals Windows 10 update. It's not officially naming that, but it may be. We're pretty close to it. And many of the tech websites are already using both terms interchangeably. Some of the new changes are merely cosmetic. More functional changes, including settings menu, offering an easier way to access more sign-in options, including setting up a physical security key, such as a USB stick. You're going to be able to put a USB stick in the side of your computer, and that will automatically allow you to, it'll put something on it, and that will make it know that, oh, this is okay for to be signed in, and I'm just going to be signed in. I don't have to use a password. And if you're going away from that computer, you take that, when you shut it off, you take that stick out, and someone's going to have to actually type in the password, or they're not going to get into your system. So it makes it easier and quicker for you to get in. Another change is the files in the downloads folder will now be listed with the most recently downloaded files viewed first by default. Default now is alphabetical, and so the folders are first and then the individual files. So you won't have to hunt through the alphabetical listings to find a file you just downloaded. It'll make it easier. And then there's going to be some updates to your notepad, and the power button in the start menu will now turn orange when a Windows update requires a restart. So that should help. And there's also an option to change the color and size of the mouse cursor to make it easier to see. And there's also going to be some other notepad updates as well. Okay, the Windows 10 update coming in the spring will also redesign the start menu. There's no way I can show you other than the picture that's here. Let's see if I can make that bigger anyway. It's going to have a slightly different look. And so those of you who don't like change, you're not going to like it. Those of you who don't care, and when change usually is to make it easier for you or better for you, you'll see things and be able to handle it a little bit better. So the next big feature update will offer a tweaked visual. You probably won't notice the difference. Let me just make that just a hair smaller so I can see it all. Get it on the screen here. If you're hoping for a more modern start menu, then you're going to have to look elsewhere to a third party to do that. Another thing Microsoft is going to have in this next update is going to be a Windows Sandbox. And by a sandbox, it means that you're going to have an area that no matter what you do, that it's not going to affect anything else on your computer. Several of us in CFCS have been using something called Sandbox IE, but that's fairly old. I don't believe it's been updated, and I know that some people were having problems with some of the recent Windows 10 updates using it. And so what they're going to do is they're going to have their own sandbox, and it's going to be called the Windows Sandbox, and it's going to be part of Windows. And this should be coming. It may actually be coming sooner than the next update, but it may wait until the update in the spring. But you're going to have it. The ability to have a sandbox, to test something, to try something, to go to a website, and if something happens while you're there, that you can just delete that sandbox and it all goes away. That's kind of the way a Chromebook works, but Chromebook does it underlying for every tab that you open within the browser. Automatically, you don't have to tell it to go to a sandbox. Okay, I mentioned earlier that there might be a way not to use a password, and Microsoft actually wants to kill passwords by doing some other things. And so the next version of Windows will support passwordless Microsoft accounts. Now, I know some of you don't use a password, and that's very dangerous. That means anybody who turns on your computer has access to everything that's on your system. So you really do want to have some kind of a password. But if what Microsoft is going to do is make it easier for you not to have a password, but for you to be able to sign in and still be protected. And it's now in the Insider build. Here's how it works. You can create a Microsoft account without a password. Instead, you just provide your phone number. When you sign into Windows 10 with that phone number, Microsoft will text you a code that you enter on the sign-in screen. After that, you can use Windows Hello to set up a PIN, fingerprint, or face login method. You never have to type a password. Your account doesn't even have one. And you don't have to enter a code sent via text every time you sign in either. You only have to receive the code on your phone when you sign in on a new PC. And this is kind of what it's going to look like. And to use this feature on the latest Insider builds, you need a Microsoft account without a password. And it tells you how to turn that on, but that's only if you're using the test versions. I think that's going to be pretty good, and I probably will test it and use it. I do have, I do use what's called two-factor authentication, and when I was going over my notes this morning, I said, you know, I'm going to talk about this. We need to talk about what two-factor authentication, or 2FA, means. And if you use it, hopefully you are. I am using it for all of my banking now. And what happens is when I go to my bank, either of my banks, when I sign in using my username and password, it then says, okay, do you want, well, one of them will send either a text or an email, but the email really is not very safe. If someone has already hijacked your email, then they can get it and get to it before you. So you don't want to, you should do the texting. It will send a text to your phone with a code, and then you have to type that code in. That's the two-factor authentication. In other words, you're putting your name and password in, and then you're getting a specialized code that's good for 10 minutes. You type that in, and that opens up your account. And so there's various kinds. Hang on one second. I muted myself and I remembered to unmute. Anyway, to clear my throat. So this article is fairly lengthy because it talks about all the different programs and how they handle two-factor authentication. But it basically goes the way that I mentioned. Not every website, not every program that you sign into has that ability, but you're going to see more and more of it, and you should be utilizing it. Now, if you don't have a smartphone, that limits you, or if you don't have a phone that you can't get texts, that makes it more difficult. But those of you who are using standard phones, standard cell phones that have that ability, you'll find that the two-factor authentication is really a good way to go. It's clean, it's easy, and it's quite safe. All right, a couple other things I want to go over. Okay, we're getting there time-wise. We're doing pretty good, although we started about 15 minutes late. Heads up, Windows 10 is going to claim 7 gigabytes of storage for future updates. And what it's going to do, it's automatically going to put some space, reserve some space to do your updates. And for most people, that's not an issue. But if you're running a computer that your main drive, your C drive, is an SSD and it's getting quite full, which I have the problem with my Surface, which really the only hard drive in there is that 128 gigabyte SSD card. I'm sorry, SSD memory. I keep running out of space or getting close to it, so when it comes time to do an update, I have to clear a lot of information out and then save it off to a plug-in card to make sure that I have enough free space to do the upgrade. But if it's going to reserve 7 gigabytes, I'm fighting for 10 to 12 gigabytes free on my C drive on a constantly on my Surface, which is a laptop, and so, or a tablet. And so you got to be very careful and be aware of this. And you are going to be able to shut that feature off, but be aware that it's coming. But generally, to do an upgrade, you need 7 to 10 gigabytes of space. One of the upgrades needed almost 20 gigabytes of space, and I actually had to take my Surface into Microsoft, and they helped me delete things and take things off. What we ended up doing was reinstalling Windows 10, and then I just installed a lot fewer programs on it to be able to make sure that I had enough room for that next update. So be aware that you need to be checking your C drive to make sure that you've got enough room to do all of these updates. Okay, another thing is how to make system restore setup. Make sure it's set up properly in your Windows 10. I thought this was a good article. If you don't know what this means,
Huey,
yes.
we have a question from Stan.
Okay.
On that feature where it requires 7 gigabytes, did you say you can or cannot change that? Did you say, no, I don't want you to take that much space?
You're going to be able to shut that feature off, yes. Not the fact that it's not going to reserve the space, but you're going to need that still to do the update, but it's not going to, you're going to have to clean it out before you do the update to make sure that you've got that much room.
All right, thank you. I have a follow-up question. I'll wait and see if we have time.
Okay. How to make sure the system restore is set up properly. This is not something to fool around with. If you aren't aware and don't know about this, have somebody help you with this. But this was a pretty good article, and he's also got he does a podcast, so he's got something that he can talk you through it as well. But make sure you enable and configure your system restore, and it tells you how to do that and turn it on. But one of the things he says here that I think is important, A client will bring me this is the writer talking about it. Let's make this a little bit bigger. A client will bring me a computer and maybe some malware has wormed its way in, or some unwanted software has gotten installed, something like that. The client knows that the problem happened within the last 24 hours. So in this case, we could probably use System Restore to take the computer back to an earlier date, meaning longer than 24 hours ago. And the problem is likely to go away. But with System Restore, there are a couple of things that are needed in order for you to work with it. First, it has to be enabled and configured properly. And second, you'll need what's called a restore point, which means a date that the computer can be brought back to. For example, when Microsoft sends out a Windows update, the first step in that process is the update will first create a restore point. So if there's a problem with the update, System Restore can be used to take the computer back. But if you don't have System Restore on, it may not do that. You can't go back. So what happens sometimes if I go to use a System Restore and the message comes back with no restore points found, when there are no restore points, System Restore is useless. So here are two things you need to do in order to make sure that it's ready, and it tells you what to do. Make sure that it's turned on, and I double check mine is, and then you can set the maximum usage. Second, set a restore point. So you have at least one there, and you're taken back to the main window. So you can create one, put whatever date you want in there, or however you want to identify it, and then you tell it to create, and it will. It's not a bad idea to just create a new restore point every once in a while, as long as your computer seems to be working well. Windows is supposed to set one automatically each time new Windows updates come in. That's something I wouldn't rely on. But some things you should know about it. In Windows 10, System Restore is not turned on by default. This is just another goof by Microsoft that baffles him and baffles me. So you have to be aware of this and enable it. If you use System Restore to take a computer back to a previous date, it does not have any effect on your personal files, such as documents and pictures. That's a good thing, since you can use it without worrying about losing anything important. But it's a bad thing, because if you accidentally delete a document, you can't use System Restore to get it back. System Restore does not negate the need for a backup. And System Restore is not something you should use all of the time. This fella has a few clients who, at the first sign of any computer issue, immediately runs System Restore and then go back a few days, or a day or a few days. And that's not a good idea. Resolving computer problems should be done strategically and giving consideration to all potential solutions and the ramifications of each one. You just read what I wrote about it. On my podcast, you can hear what he has to say about it, and the links to that are on this page. So just be careful using System Restore, but make sure it's turned on. Okay, the next three items are a little bit lighter, or not quite Windows thing. It's almost for anything. But one of them is 10-minute mail. Have you ever gone to a website and they say, okay, there's a free download for something, but you need to create an account, or you need to put in your email address and your name, and then we'll send you a link so you can download it. So one-time thing. They don't need to have your address and be, they may or may not ever send you spam, but they may, they put you on a mailing list, and you don't want that. So there's something called 10-minute mail that I found on in an article that I was reading, and so I went to it. And so let's make this bigger. So 10minutemail.net is a free disposable email service. Your temporary email address will expire after 10 minutes, after which you can't access it. You can extend the time by 10 minutes. The website you're registering could be selling your personal information. You never know where your email will be published. An email address with a 10-minute lifespan is the best solution to prevent this. So if you're going on and you're doing something, Granted, it's not the nicest thing to do because they're trying to they're giving you something for free so they can get your email address. But still, you don't want to be bombarded with stuff from them forever either. So what you can do is, let's see how I got to it. That's the about. If you click this, welcome to 10-Minute Mail, it gave me an email address. This will expire now in less than 10 minutes. I can then use that email address. Give me 10 more minutes, get another copy to the clipboard. So you can copy it to the clipboard, refresh the page, and then how do you, and then there's an inbox. You can go to the inbox and get any mail that comes back to that for the 10 minutes. So if somebody sent something to that address, and if somebody on there can quickly send an email to me at that address, go ahead and do that. Let's see what happens. And let me know that you did it. And let's see what happens. Anybody doing it? Let's see. Refresh this page. We'll refresh it. Not yet. I hope somebody is trying it for me, can get to their email quickly and do it. So let's refresh the page again. Nope. All right, I'm going to give you another minute or two, or not even that, but I'll refresh the page and see if somebody has sent me an email. No, it should be down here if you sent me something. Nobody? Let's try refreshing again. Nope. Okay. But anyway, if you had responded, it would show up in this inbox. I'd be able to click on it, open it, read what it is. If there's a link, I can use that link, and the whole thing goes away now in 8 minutes. Let's see if somebody has done it yet. Nope. Okay. Anyway, so you can go ahead and play with that and try it. And I think that was it. It's a fun thing to do. Okay. Another item that I thought was neat was I do a lot of video stuff and put some things together using photos and so on. Sometimes I just want the picture of a person, and I found this website, remove background from a picture. Remove image background is free. It's 100% automatically done in 5 seconds. So all you have to, and it shows you here what it does. It's got a picture, but let's test one. I'm going to select a photo, and I've got a couple of photos on my desktop. And let's take this one, and I'm going to say open. You can see the slide bar here at the top. It's done. It shows me the original image, and it shows me without a background. So it's wiped out all of the background, and I can then download this picture without a background, and I can either cut and paste pieces from it, or I can use the whole thing and put my own background there. Let's do another one. Just come back up, select a photo, and we'll take this picture and open it. Opening another picture. There's a picture. It took a picture of Mike and McAlpin, a fellow I taught with. He was at a meeting and he was behind the counter. And there's a picture, and it's just a picture of him. Everything else is cut out automatically, and those little squares in the background mean that's all unerased, and there's nothing there. It's a PNG, so you can then lay another background behind it and work with it. So you can download that picture, open it up, put another background behind it, and then manipulate it, cut it, and so on. This only works with people. I tried it with a picture of our dog, and it doesn't recognize a dog, and it just doesn't work. So it does have to be a person or people. And notice in this particular picture, it only took out the one person. So what I would have to do if I wanted the other two people separately what I'd have to do is probably crop the picture with just them in it and then redo it. But it's simple, it's fast. You saw how quick it is to do, and then you download it. You can do it from entering a URL with a picture online, and it will do the same thing. And then you can download the picture. So it's so if you enter a URL, you can put the image URL in there, and it will pick up the picture from wherever it is. I think that's a really nice tool to have in your arsenal. So when you want a picture of somebody to work with, and you only want them, but they're in a picture with either a group of people or in a picture where there's a lot of other things going on, you just want to take out get all of the background out, and then you can go in and edit the picture, get the person you want, and then not have to worry about the trees and the clouds and everything in the background. So I thought that was a neat thing to share with you. And then the last thing is kind of useless, but I thought it was kind of neat. It's called Pixel Chart. And click Try Random Image. What it does, it takes any picture that you have or want to use, and then it shows you a representation of all the colors that are in it. So let me show you what that means. And I just like watching it do it. So it's picking a picture. There's the picture. And now there's a representation of all the colors that are in that picture. And there's the picture again. So I can try another random image. It just kind of takes all the colors and says, oh, they're mostly, you can see mostly whites. There's a lot of white in this picture, and yep, it sure is. Or you can take any picture from your device. So I can click on here, and let's take one of those pictures that we just used. It loads it up. There's that picture. And you can see there's not a lot of different colors, or not a lot of any one particular color. But let's take another picture that I have. Let's see, I think I got a black and white something here. Let's see. Thought I did. Yeah, it's a PNG, but I'll take it. I'll open it. It's just some black lines so it's just some black and white. And so you can see it's just black and white. And back. I just thought that was a fun thing to play with sometimes, and you can save the picture and just say, okay, here's a picture of us, and it'll just be the colors. So just something to play with in your spare time.
Is there any real use for that?
I have no idea. I have no idea. There may be for somebody who is an advanced photo editor and wants to see how many colors of something. I be honest with you, I have no idea. But I just thought it was neat how it did it. So I thought I'd share that with you. Any questions from the audience?
Huey,
Yes.
on that dual sign in for your bank.
Go ahead and ask the question, and then whoever's near the mic repeat it, because it's echoing and and I can barely hear it, and it's certainly, I'm sure the people in the audience on the recording aren't going to be able to hear it.
What do you do if you've lost your cell phone?
What do you do if you've lost your cell phone?
Hopefully, before you lost it, you've turned on the ability to find it. There are programs that are built into Android and iOS that are part of it. And to be honest, I don't think I ever turned mine on, so I don't know. I would check with your provider. If you have an AT&T phone or whoever the provider is, tell them you lost your phone and ask them if they know a way in which you can do it. There are programs and trackers, and there's things to install on there, but most phones, most Android and I believe iOS do have some programs built into them that if you've turned them on, long as the phone is on, should be able to tell you where it is or approximately where it is.
Okay,
the first thing you want to do is call it and see if it's in your room, in the room you're in, or in your house. If it rings, you find out what's ringing.
so the idea is plan ahead. If you plan to lose your phone, go ahead and turn this on.
Well, it's kind of like backing up your hard drive. You don't really need to do it until you need to be able to get to that data and your hard drive crapped out or something happened or your computer died.
Yeah.
And the same thing is, these are things you have to plan ahead, and they're probably going to happen to most of us.
Okay.
Luckily,
Huey, we have another question.
Okay.
2 points. I use Avast antivirus.
Okay.
The process for finding or locking the phone in there. It's actually a free antivirus account. That's what you want to use.
He uses Avast antivirus.
Okay, very good.
There's a system in there to protect any and all of your devices.
And there's a system in there to protect your devices.
I've got a Avast, but I've never heard of it.
Avast has several new things, and if you get a chance to hear Bob G. Do his presentation, and I'm not sure if he's done it yet for the APCUG virtual technology, but he is doing it to a lot of groups here in Florida. Then we'll be doing it in Arizona and California. But he talks about some of the things that they have. They have a VPN, and they also have a sandbox, I believe. They've got a couple of different things that you can use besides Avast. Most of them are free, not all of them. But Avast, but they work well, obviously, because they are from Avast.
Okay, second question.
I didn't quite catch how to use on a touchpad right click. How can I access right click?
How do you access right click on the touchpad?
On mine, in the lower right corner and the lower left corner of the touchpad, if you push it down, you feel that it's like a button. And you can click in either one, and that's your left button and your right button. And on some computers, I don't know if it's all of them.
Okay, it seems to work on his.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay, and before you ask it, anybody who is online, if you want to write any questions, go ahead and type in a question. There should be a chat somewhere on your screen. You should be able to chat and ask a question. Hopefully there is. And okay, go ahead, ask the question.
Okay, I have been hearing about a thing called, I think it's a YubiKey, YUBI, and I believe it's supposed to be something that allows you to verify that it's really you using the computer. It's sort of you don't need password, you have the YubiKey. It's a plug-in piece of hardware.
Yeah, there's a plug-in one, and several, I'm going to say several years ago, and I would say, gosh, I've been here 4 years, and it was long before I moved here, so it's got to be 6 or 7 years ago. PayPal had something you could get, and I think it cost you $5, and they'd send you this little gizmo, and you would press it, and there'd be some numbers on it, and if you pressed it again, there'd be a different set of numbers. And somehow they had that same set of numbers. So you would type in a password, push the button, and then type in the numbers that were on that gizmo, and that would give you your authentication. And there are still some things like that out there, and they certainly do work and work well. But the website has to be able to utilize those. I think the thing you're talking about may be a little bit different. I'm not sure which websites would be able to use it, which ones would not, or whether it would just be to sign into your computer. But yeah, they call them dongles. You have to plug them into your computer, and it sees that dongle and it will work. Other ones, the dongle has a readout, and you have to type in what's in the readout, and that readout changes. So yeah, there's all different kinds of authentication devices. Not one that everybody can use, and not one that's available for everybody. The Marshall asked, "What are the URLs for the last two items?" And I'm sure he's not talking about the ones that are on the list here. The UB, how do you spell that? I probably ought to mark that down, and then I can add it.
It's spelled Y-U-B-I, if I recall correctly.
Y-U-B-I. And what was the other item that somebody mentioned? He said last two items, so I'm just trying to think. Well, the UB we'll look up or do a search on Google to find it, but I will try to add it to the list. I should have been thinking about that as we were talking. I think that's the only question I've got from the online audience.
I have one more question. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. I've unmuted my
computer. You're echoing, though. You're echoing.
The follow-up question I had on the hard drive size, I'm having an issue trying to clone a hard drive. Can you mute yours, please? You're muted. Okay. Huey, if you can hear me. Okay. So the question is, I have an 80 gig hard drive that thank you, Forrest.
Okay, you have an 80 gig hard drive. Okay.
I would clone a Windows 10 80 gig hard drive to a 500. I've tried Ghost. Is there anything within Windows 10 you can think of? It seems like it doesn't want to do it.
They had, in earlier versions of Windows 10, they did have an image backup, and I did see a recent article about it, that they're how to get to it, but it's actually a Windows 7 image backup. So if you're running Windows 10, I think you have to go out and find the Windows 7 image backup program. It may be still on Windows 10. You have to do a search for it. It may or may not work. And then I think Mike uses one of Erasus or another image backup program, I think, that you can get free. And I'm trying to think if there's another way you can do an image backup. And whether they'll work doing what you want, I don't know. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, with that...
Ted has a question for you.
Okay.
I have a question about CCleaner. Can we discuss that?
You can discuss it. I don't use it, so I don't know it. I do know that it's widely used in the Sarasota Technology User Group, or STUG. I know they use it. Their Refurb group uses it a lot. You have to have the latest version, and be careful using it. It can get you in a lot of trouble if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
Do you have a specific question about it?
The display after you run the thing on my computer got changed, and I didn't change it, but 2 or 3 days later it changed back to what it was before.
Well, you changed something, and then it went back to a default, probably.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I did, but it happened.
Well, if it happens again, do it again. That's about the only thing I can tell you. All
right.
Ed, I really don't. Not knowing the specifics and not knowing the program, I don't know how I could answer it.
Okay, you may be able to answer this, however. After I ran it, it showed me 571 tracking files removed.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what they mean by a tracking file in this case?
Yes. When you go to a website, any website, there are things that are built into that page that track what they send you. Those are basically cookies where they may be what's it called? Unwanted program.
Potentially unwanted program.
PUPs, potentially unwanted programs. They could be advertising. They may have a 1-by-1 pixel link on that page that shows that you've been there, and it sends information back to an advertiser because they've got an advertisement on that page, or it's within their ad, and that information is sent back to somebody somewheres, and that's tracking. And so then it's tracking you, and that's why when you go to another page, an ad pops up on something you just looked up, because they know that from those tracking things. What you're doing is you're deleting all that information, and it just starts over again. It's not a bad idea to clear them out, but you're always going to have them. They don't. If you like free internet, it's something you have to live with at this point. So just keep cleaning them out. Okay.
I posted a note there on Clonezilla in the chat room.
I'm sorry?
For taking an image backup. Clonezilla is free and really works well.
Okay, that's from Clint.
Yeah.
Out in, where are you, in Nebraska or Iowa?
Idaho.
Idaho. I knew you're out in that area somewhere. Idaho.
Yeah.
He's saying, what was the name of that, Clint?
Clonezilla.
Clonezilla. And he did type it into the text box, and I will write that down. Clonezilla is a free and excellent for image backups.
Yep.
So Stan, make note of that.
I have. Thank you. I've heard of that. I forgot about it. I've tried several others, including ESUS, and I think you were thinking of True Image is another one of the backup that Mike used, and I'm still having trouble.
Well, I use True Image, and it works all the time, so I'm happy with it, but I keep doing the updates.
I have an older version. Huey, thank you so much. We're, I think, on good time. I would like for the ballots to be passed out. Take 5 if anybody needs a pit stop.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Stan. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. This has been the Central Florida Computer Society WinSIG for January 13th, 2019. And until next month, we'll see you later. Thank you.